Let's actually have a look at the story around the pay and what they're doing with it. And again, let me make this really clear. I mean, I'm sort of with Chewy that it's not necessarily that MP shouldn't get an increase, the opposition shouldn't get an increase. It's that this government's taking an increase while they're taking bonuses off some people, for example, Te speakers, and while they're firing a whole bunch of public service. So it's the reality of them getting more while everyone else is getting less or nothing. That's what it's really all about. Let's have a look at the story.
That's right, cha-ching, it's payday for MPs.
Is now the right time for politicians to get a pay rise?
Oh, look, as you well know, you don't want Prime Ministers or MPs setting their own pay. That's obviously up for an independent remuneration authority to make those decisions.
I don't want one.
You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's just a process and law that we have to follow.
The Remuneration Authority has ruled that after 6 years of frozen pay packets, politicians have earned a pay rise. Stock standard backbenchers get the full 2.8%, bringing them up to $168,000.
So $100 a week, give or take.
Ministers too, they're bumped above $300K.
And $150 a week, more.
The PM gets an immediate $13,000 increase.
$250 more a week.
Taking him to $484,200.
That amount, no, that's way too much.
168,000. Wow, that's a lot.
The authority ruled that the role of Leader of the Opposition was no longer as valuable as a Cabinet Minister, saying MMPs caused the nature of this role to change and its salary relative to other party leaders is overstated. The authority thinks the gap should narrow, possibly significantly, meaning the opposition leader's pay bump was only $2,000, a quarter of the increase Cabinet Ministers get. But the big boss's pay packet will continue to rise every year, reaching more than $500,000 by the time the next election rolls around.
Everybody's being made redundant, so I don't think they need a pay rise.
You've got to fix the country up before you fix yourself up.
Oof. Not hard to read the public sentiment on that one. Terrible timing, given the Nats were just dealt a devastating poll blow that Luxon is not taking terribly well.
Yeah, but frothy and sensationalist, I think, were the words I used.
Last night's One News poll showed the opposition had the numbers to govern just 5 months into the coalition's reign. And Newshub understands Labour's internal poll numbers also show the left a nose in front of the right, with the major parties neck and neck, the red team on 33, the blue on 34.
Well, it's not positive at the moment because we're having to fake some pretty...
Someone's been a bit pissy.
Yeah, this sounds a little bit sort of woe is me, a little bit bitchy back room. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like he's like a really, why? What do you expect? Like victim. This sounds very victim card.
Well, it's not positive at the moment because we're having to fake some pretty tough decisions.
I'll tell you what, Chewy, before it comes, I talk about reading the room, how you say he's not good at reading the room. He basically tries to sell that it's just as hard, National going through these hard times, as people losing their jobs. So he tries to sell that it's just as hard.
It's not easy when you've got people losing their jobs in the public service. It's not easy, right?
With economic times akin to 2008, Luxon's far from the soaring popularity of the John Key years.
Well, as I said, I think if you go back and have a look at times where the economy's been tough, often it does play out like that.
Possibly bad timing for Key to rock up to Parliament today as a reminder of the Nats' glory days as Luxon digs in and defends his ill-tasting medicine.
I know it's tough for those individuals, but it's not easy for a government to actually drive through that program as well. It's not easy to actually put sanctions on beneficiaries not holding their obligations on job seeker benefit. It's not easy.
It's not easy kicking people out onto the road who are beneficiaries. It's not easy. Guys, we got to, why doesn't anyone think of the white rich people? No one ever thinks of what they're going through when they're evicting poor brown people from Kainga Ora houses. It's not easy, folks.
On beneficiaries not holding their obligations on job seeker benefit. It's not easy to evict unruly tenants out of KO. So I get all of that, right? But we have a hell of a mess to fix. We are going to turn the show around.
Turn it around by cutting jobs with one hand and taking pay rises with the other.
There you go. I mean, I do feel a bit for them. How hard is it for these poor politicians having hundreds of thousands of dollars of salaries, huge amounts of also, like cars and travel and that all paid for as well. Perks when it comes to paying for their houses and their rentals and that kind of stuff. Why don't we ever think of them? I know that it's hard for like a solo mum in South Auckland, having to keep her house up to the standard that now. I know that's hard as well, but just think about Luxon. How hard is it for him to decide to remove that solo mum? I mean, why do we ever think of him? That's my question, Chewy.
Yeah, he is bad at this.
Oh, we got to do that as a t-shirt as well. I'm writing that one down. You say that so much, and you're so right. He is bad at this.
Bad at this. Like, out of those little snippets, right, the only one that got it right was Nicola Willis. Just straight out of the gates. I don't need it.
I don't want one, I think. She said, no, I don't want one.
I don't want one.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. No wiggle room. Not up for debate.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yep.
And if they all said that, then that would be fine. You know, like it's under the rate of inflation. It's the Independent Remuneration Authority. Like they should be able to play this better.
Yeah.
And I think when Luxon sort of goes off and says, "Hey, look, it's that governments can't set their own wages," and you well know this, he's hidden behind that sort of stuff before. It's very close to the entitlement speech that he got absolutely fucking lashed on. So he needs to be better at this, you know. And that can be a saying, "Hey, look, the Remuneration Authority exists. They need to be independent. It's very important that a government can't set its own wages and a prime minister can't set its own wages. That's a bedrock thing." However, I've spoken to my caucus and none of us want this.
I wonder if foresight.
That's a better
foresight is. I wonder if foresight's what's needed before. It sounds really, because like what would you remember? But it's almost like before the election, you need to get the media together and go, "Hey guys, just so you know, whether we win or they win, we're not going to challenge the Remuneration Authority." You know what I mean? Like pre-election go, we're going to let those things play out. We're not going to put a freeze on. In fact, we're going to lift the freeze. Whoever wins, Labor might win and it'll benefit them. You know, we're going to do it because the optics of it. And like I said, maybe I'm being unrealistic because you would need to have sort of optics on every single part of the economy, which is probably impossible. But I wonder if there is some things that all political parties could get ahead of before the election in case they win, to then not be in this position right now of why are you guys getting a pay increase with the cost of living crisis. I mean, it's probably impossible. It's probably me just spitballing, but just a thought.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And look, something that gets overlooked, right, is it is a tough job. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. There's some very long hours. There's a lot of responsibility. And in almost every case, these people would be earning more in the private sector.
Yeah.
You know, realistically, Luxon doesn't need any money. He's got money. You know,
seven houses, no mortgages. Remember that as well.
But if you pay people too little, you open them up to potential corruption and underhanding, and you know, all of that sort. That's the counter argument. I'm not saying that that's the case necessarily here, but that's something that has to be considered. The timing is this terrible. The optics on it is terrible. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. What the main criticism here is that Luxon's terrible at fielding these questions.
Yeah.
Like his obvious pissiness with having to answer it.
Being questioned.
Dude, that's the job.
Yep.
You're going to have to answer questions that piss you off.
Yeah.
You're going to have to field them from people that make your day more difficult. It's the job.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why you get near $500,000. I could put up with a lot for $500,000. I put up with a lot now for a lot less than that.
Kia ora again, whānau. The clip you've just watched is brought to you today by our patrons. If you want to be a part of what we do, if you want to get behind what we're doing, if you're enjoying our content and wanting to share our content, then maybe you would consider being a patron to Big Hairy News. Head to www.patreon.com/Big Hairy News to sign up to one of our levels and be a patron. At this point, we are only a listener and viewer supported show. It all comes down to you guys. If you feel like jumping on board to help, then head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Hooroo.